the Sam Hill's going on here?
The Rewatch Podcast presents the Lois and Clark Rewatch, dedicated to the series Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman on ABC. Join us each week as we investigate the origins of the Man of Steel and uncover crime in Metropolis. Send your feedback to the Rewatch Podcast at gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or follow us on Twitter at rewatchpod.
Oh, hey! Let's get back to it.
And welcome back to the Rewatch Podcast and our Lois and Clark Rewatch. I'm Corey.
And I'm shocked at how low the prices are here at Costmart. I mean, the prices are criminally, insanely low. It's crazy, isn't it? I'm impressed. I'm going to shop here all the time. I feel like I'm getting away with something.
Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. We're here discussing 2 more episodes of Lois and Clark, and this week's headline reads, Church Operation. That's shifty church. And we are discussing Church of Metropolis and Operation Blackout. But just a quick little follow-up from last week.
Right. So after you said you went and discovered some Bosom Buddy episodes.
I did. Found it on YouTube.
Yeah. So I watched those because, of course, you had the link shared onto the Rewatch page over at Facebook. So I was like, oh, yeah. So I clicked on it because I haven't seen these, in forever. And I was like, wait a second, this is different. The theme song was changed. It wasn't the one that I remember. Because, of course, I'd said it was Billy Joel's My Life song. Mm-hmm. That was the theme song. Well, I was like, I got to figure this out because this is not what I remember. I don't want to seem like an idiot. So I looked into it, and it turns out, all right, first of all, Bosom Buddies really didn't do that well. They only had 2 seasons. And they were short seasons. They had only 39 episodes between the 2 seasons. So truncated seasons, because of the popularity, I guess, was not as good as it could have been. And then when they started re-airing the shows, they changed the theme song because the rights to My Life by Billy Joel was just too expensive. So they had to replace it with this other thing called Shake Me Loose or something like that. It was sung by some woman. I've never even heard it before. So I was like, oh, that makes sense. And it turns out that Billy Joel wasn't even the singer on the one that they used for the theme song, which happens a lot. They had a studio singer singing My Life. His name was Greg Bennett, which makes sense because it would cost less to have that version, I guess, sung by a cover artist. So it was, when it first aired, it did have My Life as the theme song, but then when they started doing repeats of it, they just couldn't afford it. So they took that out totally and replaced it with another song.
Yeah, and I have to say, though, the new theme song for it, the one that they switched it out with, is great. It's like it's one of those classic 80s theme songs that tells you everything about the main characters and goes on for about 3 minutes.
I know, it's so long. I'm like, what the heck?
The two best friends and hanging out and they got a room together and look, here we are sunbathing and playing frisbee. It just goes on and on and on.
I know, it does. I was like, this is like telling you the whole story. What's going on here? This never happened before. So yeah, unfortunately, that's the theme song that you're stuck with, for better or for worse. I'm just used to My Life. I was like, I did not hear it. And I'm like, wait a second, something's not right. So I had to investigate, and that's what happened.
Yeah, but people, if you want to check out Bosom Buddies, it's 80s to the max. And
oh yes,
I loved it. I binged 3 episodes straight up. Yeah, I'm gonna keep watching that. It's good stuff.
It's a fun show. And like I said, it didn't do very well, so the chances of getting it on DVD probably aren't going to be great just yet.
But I'll put the link up on our Facebook page, like you said, so it's there if anybody wants to go and find it. All right, so let's get into our first episode discussion today for Lois and Clark. The episode is Church of Metropolis, written by John McNamara and directed by Robert Singer. And this originally aired on October 23rd of 1994.
Excuse me, is one of you Clark Kent?
I am.
Mason Drake, Deputy DA. I'd like to see if you're willing to testify against Baby Rage.
I'm not telling you nothing, man. Let my lawyer. Let me out of
Baby
here.
Rage.
Get off me.
Wonder where they call him that.
You must be Mike Lane?
Yeah.
I'm very sorry about what happened to your restaurant.
Well, thanks, but they're gonna have to do a lot more than that to get me to pull out.
And you are?
Lois Lane. I'm the one that called the police.
That kid also threatened Lois.
Clark, he was just trying to scare me.
Well, now it's my turn to scare him, with your help.
Whatever I saw, I will tell in court, Miss Drake.
Mason. Call my office in the morning so we can arrange a deposition. And if you need to reach me during off hours, my home phone's on the back.
Thank you.
Subtle.
And I'll have Superman get in touch with you.
Oh, Superman. Right, I guess I have to talk to him, don't I?
Most people consider that an honor.
Well, I guess I'm not most people. Clark, we'll talk soon.
Yeah.
When Clark witnesses a gang member try and burn down Lois's Uncle Mike Lane's restaurant, Superman comes to the rescue. While Clark is called upon to testify, the district attorney Mason Drake has very little interest in Superman doing the same due to his vigilante status, and in fact, Mason is interested in Clark as more than just a witness, seeing him as an ordinary guy who does the right thing and finally asks him out on a date, which starts to drive Lois a bit jealous. As Lois and Clark investigate why the attack happened, they start to discover reports of a group called Intergang that has ties to the Cosmart store owner and philanthropist Bill Church. Indeed, Church is the leader of the new criminal underground, working to take over not just Metropolis, but cities all around the world. The attack on the restaurant was part of an effort to bring down property values in that part of Metropolis, which would allow Intergang to buy it all up for cheap. The group, via lawyer Martin Snell, warns Superman via an attack on Lois that he can continue his usual life-saving heroics, but he is to stay out of any activities that relate to Intergang business. Their latest business means taking over the south side of Metropolis to later build hotels, casinos, and restaurants to help cover up the taxes that Bill Church can't pay. But the only thing stopping them is Mike Lane's restaurant, so Church orders his death. Superman, knowing that the police in the south side are corrupt and on the take, poses undercover as a police officer, saving Mike Lane. With help from Mason, they manage to record Snell offering Mason a bribe, which results in his arrest and the gang member being sent to a full trial. Leaving no loose ends, Church causes a bomb to explode, killing the officers and Snell, ensuring that they won't learn about his involvement in Intergang.
Face it, you got your little red shorts caught in a bad combo of high-tech and close friends. Even you can't be in two places at once, but our bullets can. So, where does that leave us?
Let's ask the DA.
Oh, sure, you can take me in. You're Superman, and I'm just a guy from Paramus, New Jersey. But do that, and two things happen. A, someone you care about dies. And B, my replacement steps right in. Now, you don't want A, and I don't want B, so I think what you need is a little attitude adjustment. And by that, I mean, you be the best Superman you can be. Street crime, wipe it out. Terrorists, kick their butts. Carjackers. Hey, I drive a Ferrari. Put those guys in orbit. But stay out of the South Side. I don't care if it's a cat chasing a mouse. You flash cape in that part of town, you're looking at an all-expenses-paid education in bereavement. Are we clear?
On one thing. This is not over.
All right, so we got a fair bit of info here in the investigation.
Yeah, so iReactions did some research for us again. And in the script, Mason is supposed to be a lot more flirty. But the actress, Farrah Fork, I think was her last name, she plays her as interested in Clark rather than just being, like, overly flirty. She was supposed to flash him, like, a huge smile, kind of be, like, really, like, maybe not throwing herself at him, but close to it. And she decided to make the choice to act it like, you know, not like a sex object, but as someone who just meets someone for the first time and just feels a connection, you know, feels like this is someone that I kind of want to know. There's something about him that I like. So, you know, she does a double take when she meets him, you know, just sort of like, oh, well, hello, it's nice to meet you, you know. She touches his arm, you know, and says, hey, we'll talk soon, right? You know, basically just trying to show interest rather than just being overly, you know, into him, which I think that's nice. That's a good way to play it, I think.
Yeah, definitely the more subtle approach.
It gives her character a little more depth. You know, she's not just like a bombshell of the week or something like that. She's someone who could be a possibility, you know, for him. So that was some good observations there by iReactions. So there was some more dialogue from Mason about not liking Superman. We got, you know, a little bit about what she said, you know, like who are you, where do you go, you know, and all this stuff. And he's, of course, you know, it's like, I can't tell you that. And she goes, that's my point, you know. But there was some more in the script, and she's like, I never liked the idea of you. I mean, are you insured if you hurt someone? You know, you make so much more paperwork for my office. How do I get a hold of you for depositions? I hate secrets, and mystery men bore me as much as they scare me. It just sort of really hammers it home, like how much she does not like him. And that's when the guy comes up at the end. He's like, hey, big guy. And, you know, Superman takes off saying, this is not my day.
Again, she plays it a bit more subtle, you know?
Yes.
It's obvious that she doesn't quite like Superman or like his tactics. There's no need to lay it on too thick.
Right, exactly. There was an extra line from Lois, you know, when Superman's talking to her, and she says something like, yeah, you're pretty noticeable, or you stick out, you know, it's not like you can go undercover. You know, then Superman gets the idea. But in the script, like, they take it a step further, and Lois is like, well, it's not like you can go undercover. And then, like, she goes, or can you? You know, and then like Superman's like, I see what you're saying. It's a good idea, you know. So she's sort of in it from the beginning that he's going to go undercover as a cop. In the episode, it's sort of assumed that she knows, but they don't like hammer it home like they did in the script.
Yeah.
Clark has to think about going out to lunch with Mason. You know, she asks Clark out, and in the episode, he's like, yeah, okay, you know. But in the script, she's like, you know, would you like to go out to lunch, you know, discuss the case? No, just, you know, lunch. And Clark's like, lunch. And there's like a pause, and she goes, okay, don't need to cap that enthusiasm or anything. And he's like, no, I'm interested. You just caught me off guard. It was just a weird little extra line to put in there. I think it's good they took it out because it shows that he's interested rather than just sort of like going along, you know, with it just because she asked him out. Lois gets a beeper message that Uncle Mike is in trouble, but they're together. Lois and Clark are together. So how does he get away from Lois and go save Uncle Mike as the cop? There was a deleted scene here where she says, I have to call the police. And Clark goes, well, this phone's out of order. Go try the other phone, the payphone down the street. So she goes down the payphone, you know, down to the other payphone. And that's when he, you know, rushes off to save Uncle Mike as the cop. So a little more information, but, you know, you don't really need it. There was a scene with Lois and Mike after Clark saves them as the police officer. Lois comes, he's like, oh, Mike, you're okay, you know. He's like, yeah, there was a cop that showed up, and boy, he had a really good right cross or something like that, you know. Like, I don't know where he went though. And Lois is like, well, I'm sure he's around somewhere, you know, and smiling, you know, kind of like an aside to, like, you know, the audience at home, like, we know what happened, you know, or I know what happened. So it was okay, but since they took out the line earlier about her actually knowing he's going to go undercover on purpose, it didn't make sense to have that line in there either. Okay, so now this comes up in, I think, the back issues. Someone was mentioned about the parents, you know, Martha and Jonathan, that they really didn't do too much in this episode. They were there, but they didn't really do too much. And there was a cut out part from the script which sort of gives them a little bit more to do. You know, like they're always there and they give some advice, you know, to Clark, it seems like, and that's what was missing from the aired episode. But they had this in the script where Martha goes up to Clark and he's talking about Mason, talking about Lois, and how he said, you know, if anyone's blind around here, Lois, it's you. So it's from that whole conversation, and Martha's like, you know, Clark, your life is so complicated sometimes. I watch you trying so hard to figure everything out, just like when you were a little boy taking Dad's new tractor apart and bending the axles and the pretzels, remember? And then Jonathan's like, who could forget? Try explaining that one to the insurance company. And then Martha says, you know, I know you and Lois have had your ups and downs, but I also know she really cares about you. Maybe just a friend, maybe something more. You two are going to have to figure that out. And this Mason girl, well, if you're wondering about whether you can trust someone, isn't the simplest way just to come out and ask them? So you get that down-home country advice. It's just, it wasn't in the episode. For whatever reason, probably for timing, they cut it out. But this is what people were missing with the two characters in this episode.
Yeah, it's always good to see them show up and give their advice. But yeah, it was kind of just a quick little moment for them, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like there was something about it that just didn't sit right. And then when iActions sent us this little outtake, I was like, oh yeah, this would have been nice.
Face it, Lois, we're at a dead end.
Maybe not. If that case gets thrown out and my office is implicated, I could get disbarred. I want to get to the bottom of this as much as you do, but I don't know who to trust anymore.
Seems to be going around these days.
I guess if you want trust, you have to start by giving it. This is everything my office has on Inner Gang, and my personal files on Martin Snell.
I think we should do it. If we combine what we both know, it can't possibly get any worse, can it?
You have a point. Careful. Sounds like the bug that bit me. It still hurts. Nice get.
I'm gonna go let it out the window.
What, all of a sudden you're a Buddhist?
We broke another needle on this guy, Ken. Now I can't get the probe to float.
I have to go.
Where?
You guys stay here. It won't take long.
What won't take long?
The thing that I have to do in the place that I'll be back from in just 1 second.
Does he do that a lot?
Constantly.
All right, well, let's get into the main story. And the lead story here, the Customart's deal of the week for the organized crime lover in your family.
Yes.
All right, I kind of like this, this inter-gang, and it seems like they're going to stick around for a while.
Yeah.
You know, they're finally setting up, I guess, what is going to be an overarching story, yeah?
Right. It's something that we've been talking about. You know, it's like we don't want to just have, you know, the bad guy of the week. We want to have that overarching villain like Lex was in the first season.
And it starts off with Uncle Mike, Lois's Uncle Mike, and he has a cafe on the south side. And, like, the south side's just gone to shit.
Yeah. Really bad.
So much that there's, like, these thugs that go around, and then this one guy, Baby Rage, shows up and just, like, puts a bomb in Uncle Mike's cafe. And this kind of sets up the whole thing, because Clark witnesses it. He, obviously turns into Superman and saves the day, catches Baby Rage, and that leads them to the police station where Clark is willing to testify against him, and they meet Mason Drake, the deputy DA, and things kind of go from here. So what do you think of the introduction of Mason Drake as a character?
Well, I like Mason. Well, I like the actress who plays Mason Drake. She was on Wings. I don't know if you ever watched that show. It was a great show set in an airport, like a small commuter airport, and not like a big, huge, like JFK or anything like that, but just like a small little airport. Had 2 or 3 planes going on or something, and she was one of the characters. She wasn't there right from the beginning, but she came in, I forget, one of the later seasons, and she was just awesome. Like when she came onto that show, I was like, oh, I like her, like she was just funny. She was beautiful, gorgeous, and like seeing her here in Lois and Clark, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I forgot that she was actually in Lois and Clark. So I think it was a good introduction, of course. Very natural, it plays into the whole thing, doesn't feel forced at all.
Yeah, I agree. We're talking about it in the investigation, but the way she plays this character is very authentic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Not over the top. She's not some silly bimbo. She's the deputy DA. So when she starts to subtly flirt with Clark, while at the same time displaying her dislike for Superman's methods.
See, that was new. That was like, oh wow, that's an interesting take, on this. I remember when I was first watching it, I was like, how could she not like Superman? Everyone likes Superman, but like her reasons are very understandable.
Exactly, and it gives more for Lois to be annoyed about.
Exactly.
Because not only is she flirting with Clark, but she's also sort of bagging out on Superman, who she's like, most people would consider it an honor to meet Superman. She's like, I'm not that impressed.
Exactly. I like this better. I mean, I still like the other episode that had her competitor, Linda King, Lois's competitor. I like that too, but this is along the same lines where you got someone who's interested in Clark, and it drives Lois a bit crazy, And that was just a one-off, of course. But this one, knowing that it's, Intergang is going to stick around, we can assume that Mason Drake is going to stick around as well. So we're going to see where this goes. And I like this. I like because it feels a little bit more natural than the whole Linda King thing.
And they tie her in with the main bad guy who, I guess by the end, they're pretty sure that Bill Church is a bad guy, but they have no proof.
Right. Exactly.
Because, Intergang is very shady. They're very underground, working their nefarious plans like a puppet, really.
Exactly.
They're the puppeteers. So when he comes in and he's a part of this urban redevelopment program, and you think, oh, okay, he's just a nice guy, he's got some money, and he kind of, makes his money in urban redevelopment, it's all cool. He's also the dad from Everybody Loves Raymond, so
exactly.
You kind of just think him as this kind older man who's willing to help out. But behind it all, he's got these underground offices, and he talks to people all over the world. They've got branches, this big, massive global city-owning gang that they call Intergang. So, yeah.
Well, I'm loving it because this whole season so far, like, obviously, everyone knows I must like sitcoms because I'm always drawing the connections to all the sitcoms that all our guest stars have been in. But yeah, I like his character. I like the actor, of course, Peter Boyle. I like the idea of Intergang. I kind of wish, like, it just feels like when he's explaining to the lawyer Martin Snell about what their plans are. I'm like, boy, he has the same technology that Lex had on that table, He can build up little holographic, casinos and hotels and everything. And it's kind of like, I wish that Lex was still around. I mean, I like Bill Church, but it'd be nice if Lex was still around. They could have gone, like, head to head, like have a war between Lex and Intergang and see how that plays off and how the Superman and Lois and Clark have to deal with all that. I think that would have been a neat way to go about it.
Yeah, I love that he had the cliched hologram display to show what he was doing. I thought it was pretty cool.
I mean, I can't be sure. I mean, to me, it looked exactly like the same thing that Lex had, like the same prop or whatever, I'm thinking.
Yeah, and of course, like, every bad guy has to have his henchmen.
Right.
And here it takes the form of a lawyer named Martin Snell.
Yes.
And I like this guy too, the way he's been manipulated by Church to be out there and confront Superman head on.
Yes.
So he can stay behind the curtain. But Snell's got this plan to sort of attack Superman without necessarily attacking him. Going after the people that he feels like he would love, and that includes Lois and most of the people at the Daily Planet who he works closely with, people that he knows. I like this plan.
Yeah, I like it too. And this is one of the things that Lex has sort of stumbled on as well, is that Superman's weakness is that he cares. He cares about people. So you don't attack Superman directly. This is what, Lex eventually learned. You attack him by going after the people that he cares about or things that he cares about. So this was a good way to go about it. I'm sad that we're not going to have Martin Snell still around. It's too bad what happens to him at the end of the episode, because I like the character. He's funny. He's a little bit dangerous. He actually reminds me of a teacher that I work with, not because the teacher is dangerous or, slimy or anything, but like the way he talks, and actually his whole like facial features remind me of this teacher that I know. I'm like watching it the whole time, like, oh my God, that's John. It's John. He's in this episode. But I like that character. I'm going to miss him. We only had him for one episode, but I really liked him.
Yeah. When he contacts Superman over the supersonic sound,
right,
to get him to come and see him, and then he lays out the whole plan, and then he shoots off that that weapon, which just turns out to be like paintballs ostensibly, really.
Right.
And then Superman comes back, and he's just there feeding the ducks, sitting there. Oh, you're not going to pick me up again, are you, Superman?
Exactly.
And then he threatens him, just by threatening the people that he knows Superman cares about. So I thought it all played off really well. And of course, Superman, he's going to go and figure this out.
Right.
So by the end, when he figures out all this like bug technology thing that they have. I was like,
Right.
that's pretty good.
Now, when after he's done talking with Martin Snell, I noticed this now more than ever before because I'd never noticed it when I first watched it because it wasn't on my mind. But now that we're looking at things more critically, we have Clark Superman who does the cape out, where he sort of like flaps the cape in front of the camera, and then they put the sound effect in there of him flying off, even though he's not really flying off. At the end of this scene, he seems to fly like straight up. So I think they must have used actual like wire work to make him fly away there. And it looked so good because he just sort of like flies up and away, like while looking like very determined and angry at Martin Snell. So it was so much better than using the usual cape out. And I wish they would do that more. I never noticed it before, like I said, but now that I know that it's there, it's more on my mind when Superman leaves the scene. It's like, oh, there's another cape out. Oh, there's another cape out. And then something like this is like, oh, look at that. Actual physical, effect work.
Yeah, I liked it too. I thought it looked really good. It's immediately followed by a big trope, though. This is something I always notice. Is the reason that Snell is there talking to Superman is because Bill Church doesn't want anyone to know that he's the head of Intergang. But, Superman flies off and Snell goes, "Man of steel, will of iron. Isn't that right, Mr. Church?" I'm like, yeah, just say that guy's name on an open broadcast.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You think he would be like, can we get like code names or something? Call me Cobra.
There you go. There you go.
But yeah, it looked really great. And about this time that we get Mason back into the story. And she's continuing to be hostile about Superman. And this is where she notes that he doesn't have the right to fight crime, really.
Right.
Like, this is where she talks about him like he's a vigilante, right?
Yeah.
We've had people at the beginning of the season who were, like, very anti-Superman because of that whole subliminal message thing. But I think this is the first time we're really getting people, or at least a character, noting that Superman is not the police. And that they have an opinion about that, that it's the reason we have police is because they are hired by the city to do that job. I thought this was a great development for the story, and it wasn't in your face like that first episode of the season.
I think the way they play it, like Mason doesn't like Superman, like she knows that he is helpful. I think she knows he is helpful, but again, just the way he does it does cause more paperwork. She knows it helps, but it's just like, maybe it's not the best way. So she's not actually going after Superman, because she could. She could go after Superman, serve him with papers and saying you need to stop, but she doesn't because she knows that it does help in many cases. It's just, it makes a lot more work for her.
They try to make you believe that Mason is a bad guy as well. It's not done in a way where, like, Lois is made to seem petty. Lois
Right.
could easily show up and like throw this evidence in Clark's face, which she kind of does, but not really. But this whole connection between Mason, Church, and Snell, in the fact that they used to work together. They were in business together. I think by this point too, Lois had stumbled onto Mason kissing Clark. So when he's kind of like hesitant to believe Lois, I mean, she still pursues it. But yeah, like I said, she doesn't come off petty or anything like that.
No, it's very natural. It's very natural because she finds out that information and, she just thinks naturally, well, he's interested in her because she's, a beautiful woman. But, I've got to explain to him. See, she's evil. She's a bad guy, and that's why he doesn't believe me because she's just attracted to her. And so it's a very natural progression there.
And it's like you said, we get this whole thing with the hologram thing. And for all intents and purposes, Church just goes full digs and tells us all about like what the big plan is here. And this is what Intergang does. They kind of just buy up property and create more business for themselves.
I thought the tax excuse was kind of weird. I was like, all these things just to hide the taxes that I can't pay. I'm like, well, it's more than just that, right? You're trying to take over the whole criminal, world, right? It's not just about your taxes.
Yeah. And, it is an age-old story, too. You got that one lone hangout.
Yes.
Which is Uncle Mike's Cafe, which, I don't know, you could easily go to the guy and go, hey, like, this whole area of town is a shithole. If you're going to hold out for something, well, hey, you know what? We're going to build more shopping centers and yada, yada. How about we offer you a lease there
right,
or something,
exactly.
At the rate that you're currently paying or something, just to get him out of that building.
Exactly. It's like there's other ways you could have gone about this. You know, easier ways.
Sending Baby Rage to blow him up shouldn't be your first port of call.
No. Never a good idea to send Baby Rage first. You know, save him till later. This life lessons. You know.
And this, of course, forces Superman to go undercover as a cop. This was weird. Superman dressed as a police officer. I just thought it looked so weird.
Well, yeah. I mean, I didn't mind it. I just think in the script, I didn't put this in the deleted things, but they had mentioned that the hat, the policeman's cap he was supposed to wear, was supposed to be pulled down really far over his eyes, almost like a cowl, you know, like Batman's cowl. It's supposed to be down a lot farther, so you couldn't recognize him at all. But I mean, you could sort of see it was Superman. It was okay. I didn't mind it.
But he does save Uncle Mike.
Well, yeah.
But at the same time, Baby Rage is set free, and they come up with this whole like clerical error thing, pretty much.
Right.
Like it was dated wrong. He
Right.
wasn't read his Miranda rights. Yada yada yada. And this is where Mason just comes and teams up with them. She's like, "Look, I know what you're thinking. Like the evidence, I was in business with these people, but I'm not that person. So here's all the stuff I have, and how about we just work together on this? Because you got information, I've got information, so let's pool our resources." So it brings her around as an endearing character.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And, I like that, the fact that she wants to work with them. So Clark figures out that Intergang is using these robot bugs, which kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, it does.
They did set it up kind of at the beginning, like Lois got bitten by a bug, and you're like, that was weird.
And then Perry gets bitten.
And then, of course, Clark immediately just like figures this out, and they do a close up on the bug, and then they cut to the guys who do the targeting, and they're just like, "Hey, we broke off another needle on this Kent guy. Like, what the hell?" And then Superman busts her,
Yes,
and gives them crap. And I thought this was also a bit weird. Because he does this line where he's just like, "Stop bugging people," and then just starts smashing up their monitors and stuff.
Right, yeah.
I was like, okay, fair enough.
There was someone in the back issues that really liked all the one-liners in this episode. That's one that they noted about. Very comic bookish.
Yeah, and they target Perry because of, what he's up to. He actually had to save Perry and Jimmy this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, it's all cool when he picks up Lois and she's in his arms and he like slowly floats down and puts her on the ground safely.
Right.
It's something else when he does it with Perry and Jimmy.
What?
But I did like it though, because Perry's just like, "Did you just save me for something, Superman? Do I want to know what it is?"
Yeah, it was good. It was a good line.
And then, of course, Mason implicating Snell in Intergang by recording his attempts at bribing her.
I love this when he's facing the judge. He's like, "Obviously, Judge, this is someone who's been hired to impersonate me. That's not me." Like he doesn't miss a beat, He's just like automatic. Like he's just him being a slimy lawyer just comes so naturally. He has excuses everywhere.
Yeah, and it was a good way to wrap up this story.
Yeah,
the fact that he gets implicated, he's going to go to trial, and then at the very end, Intergang has like so many connections that Church has access to the cameras where Snell is about to reveal the head of Intergang, and he just, without thinking about it, without any malice or anything, he just blows the place up. He's just,
exactly.
Business taken care of.
Yep.
Whatever. So, yeah, I think it's a good setup for Intergang.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so some bylines for the episode. What did you think of Perry giving Jimmy love advice?
Ugh. I gotta say, now, both of these episodes have Perry and Jimmy subplots. And, like, watching this one, I couldn't help but be like, this subplot, like, it has nothing to do with the overall episode at all. It's just there. There's no reason for it to be there. It doesn't impact anything that the main characters are doing at all. It's just there for them to do. It's to give those characters something to do. And I was just not a fan of it. And like, regardless of Perry's advice, which, is questionable at best, I hated the whole jungle drums. Every time they started talking about their, the tactics, I was like, I just did not like it.
Yeah, it really didn't tie into anything.
No.
It's good to have Lane Smith doing his bit as Perry.
Right.
Like, he's always doing stuff that's fun, whenever he's going to tell a story.
Oh, yeah.
I'd prefer he was just in the background telling Elvis stories, though.
Exactly. Like, this is just so, I don't know, it's like maybe I'm looking at the like this never happened before. Like I didn't even realize the change, when I first watched it back in the day. But like seeing it now, like maybe I'm looking at the first season with rose-colored glasses, but it seemed like the subplots in the first season really had more impact on what was going on in the main story. And this one just was so, it was just not. It was so out of there.
So what about Mason getting like so hot over a shirtless Clark?
This is like season 1 Lois when she shows up and he's like just out of the shower. This was good. This was good.
Clark is like so naive, he just doesn't get it.
I know.
Walking around without a shirt on, and she's just like, no, it's hot in here. You don't need to put a shirt on.
Take mine off, Yeah. Yeah, this is much better, much better.
I hope something kind of develops here.
Yeah.
It's the plot that would make Lois see what she's missing, or make her realize what it is that she wants.
Yep.
I thought it was good. Martha has been taking psych classes, apparently, and she psychoanalyzes Clark.
Yes. Adult education. It's a wonderful thing. This was, like I said, we didn't get a whole lot of Martha and Jonathan, and it would have been nice to have that bit of advice, that they had in the script. But I gotta give it to Jonathan here for the best line. Like Clark is tore up. He's not sure what to do about Mason, what to do about Lois. He blew up at Lois. He's not sure what to do at all. And like she's like, and Mason, could be working for Intergang. And Jonathan's like, well, nobody's perfect, son. How about some pie? It's like, way to go, Jonathan.
Yeah. And Martha's advice, too, like her psychoanalyzing, she points out that Clark is referring to himself in the third person.
Yes.
But not only about Clark, but about Superman. You're talking about Clark and Superman like they're separate people. They're both you.
Yes. It was a good moment.
It was. And then finally, Lois and Superman have a bit of a dance. This whole thing about flying and dancing. I mean, they're really trying to push the Superman and Lois love connection this season, right? Like heavier than it was last season.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's just kind of weaseled in there, here and there.
Yeah,
just all of a sudden they're doing something. They're dancing. Or
yes.
She's giving him a rose or something. It's like, it doesn't seem like she's completely in love with him. It's only when he's there that she starts doing things that says, I am so in love with Superman.
This comes up a little bit in the back issues. So we'll talk about it a little bit there with someone had noticed or had something to say about the whole Superman-Lois relationship. We'll get into that. I will say, though, that they did tie together in this episode a couple scenes. We have Bill Church at one point when he's going down to his secret lair underneath Cosmart, and he's whistling or humming a tune, and it was Fly Me to the Moon. And then later on, they have that same song at the little dinner dance that they were at, and then at the end, of course, Lois and Clark dance to that song.
All right, nice, like an overarch.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into our quote vote.
What's everybody standing around for? This is a newspaper, not happy hour at Buckingham Palace. What are we here, the Daily Planet, or second stringers from the Weehawken Gazette?
Am I making myself perfectly clear?
Not a lot of votes this week, but we do have a winner, so let's get straight into it. Cue the music.
Kermit and a gangster find the shop of an old friend.
Well, this can't be right.
It's the forwarding address her mailman had for her.
Molly's a computer engineer. What's she doing running a fakey place like this?
The gangster notices a book in the front window.
Technology is Killing Us by Molly Flynn.
What? When did she start writing this junk?
Why do I get the feeling that you and Molly aren't exactly on the Friends and Family program, see?
So we drifted apart a little. I suppose you've kept in touch with your college friends?
Well, yeah.
Well, sure. That's easy when you go to Smallville U with a graduating class of 10 farmers and a cow. Yay!
And scene. I gotta remember, the gangster, I gotta leave a little space for the see?
I thought it'd be great. Teaming Kermit up with the gangster.
Exactly.
A lot of fun. All right, so getting into our second episode discussion today. The episode is Operation Blackout, written by Kate Boutillier?
It sounds kind of French. Maybe Boutillier?
Boutillier. And directed by Michael W. Watkins. And this originally aired on October 30th of 1994.
So, Lois tells me that you used to be a computer engineer.
That's right. I gave it up after working on the Hawkeye project, the machine that can kill from space. Made me realize what a horror technology has become.
Are you serious? Without technology, we'd be in the Dark Ages.
Lois, it's killing us. We have got to release its death grip and free the human spirit.
Jeez, I feel like I should yell, amen.
Maybe it would help if you read my book, Lois.
Sure. Did you have it on tape?
Molly, I noticed that you mentioned your boyfriend's death on the last page, but you don't go in any detail. Did the Army ever tell you what happened?
You went to the end of the book first?
Yeah, I read a lot of mysteries. It's a bad habit.
Oh. Well, they said he was installing the trigger system on the satellite when somehow it exploded. They said that the blast was so bad that there weren't even any remains.
I wonder what they'd say if they knew he was at Fort Truman this morning.
What?
This was taken at a weapons demonstration.
That's not Ryan.
What do you mean that's not Ryan?
I mean, it's not Ryan. It looks a little like Ryan, but then again, he has one of those faces, you know. Do you know much about Chinese herbs, Clark?
Well, actually, when I was in China...
Molly, could we get back to Ryan?
Lois, he's dead. What more do you want?
A little more than the military's official story would be
That is
helpful.
the only story that I know. Now, this one is supposed to slow down the aging process by calming the organs of the body. You might consider trying some, Lois.
After a military weapons test of an automated attack drone goes haywire and kills the general in charge, Lois and Clark begin investigating what went wrong and come across a picture Jimmy took that shows a man that Lois knew but had died a year earlier, Ryan Wiley. As they continue their investigation, they question Ryan's girlfriend, an old friend of Lois's named Molly, who has taken up an anti-technology stance, even writing a book about it after Ryan died. Attempts to obtain sign-in sheets or any other information about who was present for the weapons test is also leading to a dead end, courtesy of the new officer in charge, Colonel Fane, one of Ryan's minions. Technology around the city starts to fail over the next few days, with every traffic signal turning to green simultaneously, and computers and telephones around the city shutting down completely. While Perry and Jimmy work to get an edition of the Daily Planet out using the old technology, Lois returns home to find herself being pushed out the window by what appears to be Molly. After Clark, as Superman, saves Lois, the two go undercover onto the military base to find out more information, but are promptly caught and imprisoned. Clark in a cell, Lois with Molly, who it turns out was not behind the whole plot. In actuality, it was Ryan trying to frame Molly for the failing technology around the city as well as the destruction of the military base, while he worked unsuspected, since he was legally dead, to use an advanced military weapons satellite to hold countries hostage and take over the world. Clark breaks out and changes to Superman, disabling the satellite and capturing both Ryan and Fane.
Lois, any idea what caused this?
Sounds like sabotage. The Department of Traffic got an anonymous note saying, "Cars are isolating us from each other. Walk among your fellow man."
Lois, that is a direct quote from Molly's book. You think...
No, not Molly. She's an activist, but she's the last person who would do something like this. It's probably some nut read her book.
Any luck getting information on Ryan Wiley's death?
0. Everything comes back classified, access denied, but I did do a follow-up story on the ATAS. I just lost my story.
Here.
Somebody get me MIS. My computer just froze up.
So did mine.
Oh, brother, we're a half an hour before deadline. All right, let's get the systems operator on the phone. Oh, never mind, I'll do it myself. Judas Priest. Phone lines are dead.
Chief!
I thought I sent you out to get some pictures.
Guard downstairs found this tape to the lobby door.
The phones of Metropolis are mute. Its computer's silence. We have released the death grip of technology and freed the human spirit. What kind of sophomore claptrap is this?
It's exactly the claptrap Molly was ranting about yesterday.
Looks like Molly's graduated from activist to terrorist.
I guess. There's nothing Molly couldn't do with a computer system.
So let's get into our investigation. Just a tiny little bit.
Yeah, not too much here at all. Basically, after Jimmy gets saved, he just says, well, I'd feel better if my breakfast stopped dancing. Instead we just get him sort of crumbling his magazine very nervously. And then after Superman delivers the baby and he's flying them off, the guy says, I have a great idea for a name. And we're supposed to hear the wife say, don't even think about it.
Well, like she's Fran Drescher or something.
Exactly.
I'll live in Sheffield now.
I don't know if that's what they wanted, but in my mind, that's what I heard.
Surprised to see me alive?
What are you doing in that uniform?
Why'd you try to kill me last night?
Kill you?
Where's your psycho boyfriend?
I have no idea. He kidnapped me. I have been locked in here for the last 24 hours.
Oh my God, Molly.
He's gonna hijack the Hawkeye.
I know. I thought you were working together.
Oh, nice to know you think so much of me.
Well, you lied to me about him being dead. How do you explain that?
I thought he was dead until he showed up at my door and told me that he faked his death. He said that he'd stumbled upon military secrets and the army was out to kill him.
And you fell for that?
Lois, don't start with me.
Well, isn't this a surprise reunion? I thought you fell out a window, Lois.
You mean was pushed out by a man who likes to dress up like his girlfriend?
Don't make me use this.
All right, Chuck. It sounded so menacing. I'd like to stay and chat, Lois. I've got a satellite to hijack.
Well, let's get into the main story. In the lead here, Deadman uses weaponized satellite to take over the world.
Dun, dun, dun. Very dramatic.
Yeah, when are these people going to learn?
I know. This is a problem I had. As soon as they started and I figured out, they decided, all right, so here's what's happening. Here's the plan. I was like, really? You're going to try to take over the world? Okay, whatever. This will go well for you, I'm sure.
We kick off with Lois and Clark and Jimmy at this weapons demonstration, right?
Yes.
And they just roll out this military Dalek.
Yes.
It's supposed to be voice controlled. Like this general guy is like giving it orders and is doing stuff. But then there's this guy off to, the background there named Ryan who has a remote control. And full view of everybody, by the way.
Yes.
But whatever. And it turns around and kills the general. Blows him away. And it turns out that Ryan is in cahoots with this other guy who I guess is going to get promoted to general. His name is Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck Fane, Charles Fane.
And that's kind of the whole thing, is that he will get promoted to general, and this guy Ryan is pulling strings, and they make reference to this thing called the Hawkeye Project.
Yes. So I was just like, once I found out their plan was to take over the world, I was just like, really? This is your plan? You want to take over the world? Yeah, that's no big thing. It's like if I was a criminal myself, I don't think my first thing would be, I'm going to take over the world and hold it all hostage with a military satellite because no one will be able to stop me. I'm sure someone would be able to stop me, I mean, regardless of having superheroes in the world or not, they have snipers. Someone's going to take me out at some point. There's no way I'm going to actually get away with taking over the entire world. I mean, maybe start small. Take over, I don't know, your town, You take over your town, become the evil mayor of your town and start there. Start small, because they're like Pinky in the Brain. It's like, what are we going to do today? We're going to take over the world.
God. Exactly. Well, and like I said, he's kind of in full view of everybody. I mean, Jimmy even manages to snap a photograph of him.
He does.
And he's supposed to be dead. And it's Lois Lane. He knows her. She knows him. She knows that he's supposed to be dead. So if he had just not been out in the open, it would have been way better for him.
Yeah. Now speaking of Ryan, I don't know if you noticed this. I thought that this was going to be a return of Jason Trask because Ryan kind of looks like he could be Jason Trask's older brother. Like he's very similar, like the shape of the face, the hair's a little different, but there's something about the facial features that I was like, that looks like Jason Trask, because I thought he was going to be returning. I thought this was Jason Trask.
Yeah, it would have been nice if that was a bit of a tie-in.
Yeah.
Back to, what was it, Bureau 39?
Yeah. I mean, obviously he died, but still, for some reason, when I saw the, when he first showed up, I was like, is that Jason Trask? I think it's Jason Trask. Is that? I don't know. I gotta check. And then I went to the IMDb, and it was like, no, obviously it's someone else, but still, he looked like Jason Trask to me.
Of course, Lois and Clark are onto it, and they go and track down Lois's old college friend, another old college friend for Lois.
Yes.
Named Molly, who was Ryan's girlfriend.
Yes.
Or I guess they got married.
Yeah.
She still believes him to be dead, and she was an engineer, but she's now totally anti-tech and runs this like spiritual store of some kind, and she's writing books that are all anti-technology.
I picked up on her right away because when she wouldn't even look to see if it was Ryan for sure, like you knew she was guilty. She knew something about it.
Yeah, I think it's good at the end when they do reveal that she knew he was alive, like he came to see her. It was just the fact that she was keeping that a secret that made her look guilty all over.
Exactly.
But I have to say this kind of just feels like an old script that they just inserted some new characters in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They've done this before, people doing bad things. Lois knows people from college. Let's throw this twist of her old friend who is now anti-tech.
Yes.
And then by the end, they're going to sort of make up, and she's got back another old girlfriend that she used to have but doesn't. This has happened like 3 times over the series. It just seems a bit derivative.
Well, that's what iReaction said. He said, this might have been a better episode if they had just brought back the Alabama police detective, that she got stuck with, and do an arc with her, where they're in competition with each other, rather than this whole thing where, we bring someone from Lois's past and they get stuck together and have to face their issues together. It would have been better if they had done something like that.
Exactly. The reporter woman as well, whatever her name was.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Linda King. Yeah, bring her back. Why not?
From the get-go, I'm kind of digging my heels in on this one.
Mm-hmm.
She's getting into it. She's like trying to find Ryan by comparing handwriting samples from the sign-in. But why the guy signed in, I don't know.
Right.
He's supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
But whatever. And it comes out that the Hawkeye project is this laser in space that can like attack anyone. Now, Again, I don't think this kind of thing wouldn't get through the UN, right?
Right. This is how the Death Star starts, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. The UN's not going to allow anybody to have this.
Exactly.
But it exists, and it's their goal to hijack it so they can just hold the world ransom and yada, yada, yada.
And they start off by wanting to take the city hostage and causing mass chaos, so they turn all the traffic lights to green. Oh, you're so dangerous. You're so bad, Ryan and Chuck. Oh, my gosh.
Again, anybody thinking of the trickster or the prankster or whatever? It was prankster,
exactly,
causing mayhem.
Exactly, yeah.
It was good when the prankster did it. It fit his character. But
these guys... Just silly.
All this stuff starts going down, and they get this message of responsibility that is quoting Molly's book, her anti-tech book. So they think that Molly's in on it. They go to see her and stuff, but she's disappeared. And there's this whole thing about beer in her fridge, which Ryan used to drink. So they're just like, okay, so Molly and Ryan are in this together.
Yes.
And then for some reason, they show up at Lois's place and push her out the window.
Yes.
Now, is it just me, or should Lois be dead?
She should probably be dead. I mean, she has a very strong purse, I will say.
I mean, it's all well and good that they could just have her be pushed out the window and Superman saves her, like he does every time. They're trying to change it up a little. So this time, she uses a purse and catches on this like a flagpole or something, just some pole jutting out the side of her building.
It's right out of like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon, right out of a Looney Tunes thing.
This kind of got confusing because later, when she's confronted by Ryan, she has a go at him about dressing up like his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, you're the kind of guy who likes to dress up like his girlfriend and push women out of the window. And I'm like, oh, really? He was supposed to be disguised as his girlfriend?
See, I got that. I picked that up.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I did not get that at all. I just figured it was dark. She figured it was Molly that did it. But the fact that the guy went to the effort of dressing up like her as well, I was like, I didn't get that. It was too dark.
Yeah, once I figured out that Molly didn't have anything to do with it, I figured, oh, he was the guy. He was dressing up. He was really trying to implicate her in the whole thing as the one who's doing everything.
Fair enough. And then at the same time, all the power in the city goes out, and Lois just steals a Jeep from the military.
Yes.
Okay. And she's just like, I'm not stealing it, Clark. I'm just returning it to the base. No, she stole it. She just went and stole a Jeep from the military. Like, these are military-trained people, and she just managed to just steal a truck from them.
Yes.
I wasn't buying it.
No, I'm with you.
And then they get to the base, which takes them all night, apparently, because it's morning by the time they get there.
Mm-hmm.
And they find this piece of paper that was set on a timer in a fax machine. Yes. To be sent out. And the only reason Lois sees this is because she's like reminiscing about how good it was to have a fax machine. And she misses it so much because the power's been out.
Right.
It's just so flimsy, right?
Yeah, it is. It's very contrived. Like, yes, it's on a timer. It'll be sent out at this time. Oh, come on.
At 9 o'clock. So we have until 9 o'clock to do this. Whoa. And what they're actually going to do is they're going to blow up the military base that they're on. Clark gets taken away, and they have this like funny moment where he's just like, I gotta go, and they're like, what are you gonna do? What are you, Superman or something? And then he immediately like breaks the bars of this cell that they throw him in, and he flies out.
Yes.
And, like, way to like be undercover Clark.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And then, of course, like, Superman just goes and destroys the Hawkeye laser and captures Ryan and Chuck by flying up next to them, pretending he's driving a car.
It was a little goofy, yeah, a little goofy.
And then, like I said, Lois rekindles her old friendship, just like we've seen like 2-3 times before.
Yes, she's good at that.
All in all, I just think it was, I said it during the conversation. It was just so derivative, and I didn't like it. It was just, we've seen this. Why are we back here? So getting into some bylines for the episode. Let's see if we can find something interesting in here. Were you chuckling at Jimmy getting a butt splinter?
No, I even missed that part. I think I just blocked it out because I'm like, this doesn't matter.
Nothing to do with anything. Lois like comments on the benches, and then Jimmy like talks about getting a splinter in his butt.
Yes.
I'm like, okay. Fair enough, Jimmy. Whatever.
Maybe it was for the young ladies, because they were trying to attract the young ladies, getting to think about his butt or something. I don't know.
What about the yoga guy in the shop?
He was like back in the day with Sliders, some of those exposition extras that we had, that are just so over the top, and he's like, yes, we're all about peace and love. Now get out of here. He was just, I don't know. He overacted the part, I think.
Yeah, it was a bit full on. Okay, so what about Superman delivering a baby?
That was kind of neat. It was not very bloody, but hey, it's Superman. He could have maybe used his his heat vision and cut the cord and blew all the blood away with a super breath or something. I don't know.
But then, he delivers a baby and then flies the truck over to the hospital.
It was good. It was a nice little touch.
Yeah, just throwing something in there for him to do. He's not just helping traffic because all the traffic lights are green. He also has to deliver a baby. Let's just throw that in there.
Exactly. I did I like old Andy Tucker, I thought he was great. He was funny, and the thing is, he has this actor who played Andy Tucker has another tie to Superman as well, because he co-starred with Christopher Reeve in the movie Somewhere in Time. Have you ever seen that movie?
I have not. I've heard of it before, and I've heard that it wasn't a very good movie. But
no, it depends on what you're going for. Now, if you are let's say a romantic soul, if you have love in your heart, if you enjoy the romance stories and grand sweeping love and all that, I think you'll like this. It's not a sci-fi movie. Even though it does involve time travel, you sort of got to just the time travel is just what's the word? It's a way to get the story moving, but it's not
plot device.
A plot device. It's not the most important thing in there. The most important thing is the relationship that happens in here. I like it. I really like the movie. I like Christopher Reeve, of course, Superman, and it also has Jane Seymour in it. This is back in the 70s here. So Jane Seymour is in it as well, and she's just gorgeous, just beautiful in this movie. Just it's like I fell in love with her just like the Christopher Reeve did. But it's a nice story. It really is. I don't want to give anything away, but it has to do with him, with Christopher Reeve, his character, who is a writer and finds this picture of this woman and just falls in love with her and wants to meet her, but she's just from a different time. It's a really good book. The movie I really, really liked. So yeah, I would check it out.
But old Andy was a good character, just like this old school newspaper man who comes in to help the Daily Planet get an issue out because there's no power. And he's doing the old bit where they got to yell at him so he can hear them, and he's always like mishearing what they're saying.
Exactly.
It was good. Yes. It was a fun bit of back and forth.
Well, yeah, this whole thing with the planet having to go back to the old school ways because of what Ryan and Chuck did. I thought this was good, and it was Perry and Jimmy. It's their subplot, and it fits in so well with the main story, just like the first season episodes, where they had something to do with the main story, but it was a minor part. A subplot. And this is what I like about this episode, because most of it's like, nah, but this backup story here, this subplot, this byline fits in so well to the main story. It gives Perry and Jimmy something to do that actually ties in with everything. I really liked it.
Yeah, and it did have the good ending, too, where Jimmy's just passed out in the office.
Oh, yeah,
And
exactly.
Perry's like, I think Jimmy's really going to be a great newspaper man. And then he has to go and wake him up because the power comes back on. So it's good. They're finally, the two of them have a bit of back and forth, which is working. And, it's playing into the story. So it's good.
And, like, the only thing that would make this episode perfect for me, like I said, the main story was blah, but this byline was great. The only thing that makes this byline even greater is if there was some moment in there which they missed an opportunity to have Perry tell an Elvis story, because he could have found something that related to this, like, something in Elvis's life. Well, back in 1957, Elvis's guitar broke and they had to go old school, something like that. They missed an opportunity to have another Elvis story in there.
But, all in all, blah episode. A couple of funny bits and bylines, but, take or leave this one.
Exactly.
Well, I just got off the short wave with old Storm and Norman. Hey, I hear you two held down the fort. Nice job.
Thanks, Perry.
How's your old friend?
Molly's fine. She's got a lot to work through, but I told her we'd talk to her in a few days. In person.
Uh-huh. Chief, where's Jimmy?
Shh. I think he's got the heart of a real newsman. Just lacks a little endurance. Hey, look at this. You know what? I think we've got time to run an extra edition. We'll lead off with your story. Oh, boy. I sure hate to do this, but... Jimmy, time to get up.
I'm ready.
Guess it's gonna take more than a few terrorists to keep this paper down.
Yeah, especially with Perry and Jimmy around.
And you, too.
Thanks.
Notice how I didn't say anything about myself?
I did.
But you could.
Yeah, I could.
All right, so let's get into some back issues.
All right, so I did some searches, and we found a lot here for the Church Metropolis, and someone was wondering if Superman going to dance with Lois, at the end of the episode, isn't that just sabotaging Clark's chances with her? It's making her fall more in love with Superman, which is actually a very good point. I didn't think about that. And then someone was reasoning, well, Clark has kind of lost hope for Lois and thinks that she's only going to really see him as a friend, So maybe this is like a consolation prize. He gets to kind of be with Lois as Superman.
Live vicariously through Superman.
Exactly. And then this is also leading to why he sort of wants to go out with Mason, because she likes Clark, how he wants Lois to like Clark. But, they note that at the same time, they're sure that Clark knows that this isn't going to work out with Mason because she has no respect for Superman. And that's a part of who Clark is. She vehemently does not like Superman. So at some point he knows it's not going to work.
Yeah. And it's the parents' advice. Hey, Superman and Clark are the same person here. Like,
Exactly.
Stop talking about yourself in the third person.
Yeah.
You need to find someone who will accept you and Superman. So someone who you can reveal your secret about being Superman too.
They said Lois is starting to see how little she actually knows about Superman in this episode. When she's like, I don't know anything about you, and they're hoping that she's going to come to that realization that it's not going to be a full-blown relationship because he's not a normal guy. kind of belongs to the world, really. So they said if she could just voice that, that she realizes that it's not going to be a full-blown relationship. She can voice it to either Superman or Clark, then Clark can actually start to, redouble his efforts to be with her again, which I don't remember how it comes around, but I don't know if this is going to actually happen or not.
Well, yeah, this could be like the baseline of it. She is realizing that she doesn't know Superman, He says he likes that music, and she's like, oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So she needs to know more about him,
They said when Clark says to Lois, if anyone's blind around here, it's you. They said, well, that's probably a reference to her not seeing him as Superman, right? And then someone said, well, it could be, or it could be referring to how much Clark actually does love Lois, even though he told her that he doesn't. Like maybe he actually does. That's what they're trying to say here. They said the parents didn't really give much help. They should have told him to stay faithful to Lois, which would make sense, because they know how he feels about her. So now we get some information here from the Kryptonian Cybernet, which, like I said, was that fanzine that existed back in the 90s there. And Jennifer Traver from that Kryptonian Cybernet says that she didn't like Lex Luthor. Well, she didn't like that Lex Luthor was the bad guy in season 1 again and again, which I thought was weird because I like that he was the reoccurring character, but for some reason she was not into that. She was wondering if Intergang was just going to be a villain of the week, for this next season. I like Lex Luthor as the bad guy, so I was a bit confused. Like, why would she not like that?
Yeah, we've been saying that we prefer the overarching villain.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, she was just not into that. She liked the Perry Jimmy stuff, even if it wasn't really relevant to the whole story. And she actually liked the jungle drums. I'm like, oh, come on, really? Why? She did like a different love interest for Clark, which I agree. That was good. It was good to have Mason thrown in there. And Jennifer said that she liked that there was a good mix of action and romance, but was worried, that it would lean more towards action when that's what the ABC kind of wanted. They wanted to have more action and less romance. So she was a bit worried, but she liked the way it turned out. There was an article by Zoomway in the fanzine about Superman being an alien. And if Clark ever thinks about it, what would Superman's life be like if he was still on Krypton? She was trying to, this is by Zoomway, the head of the Zoomway forums back in the day. And she's like, Clark looks like, human. He definitely looks like human. It's very easy to think, oh yeah, completely human, but he's not. I mean, he's an alien. He doesn't have pointy ears like Spock, or green skin, like an alien from like an old school sci-fi movie. But he is alien, although people are just treating him as like an enhanced human. So she had this whole long article about it, about thoughts on like what is that like for Clark? Or does he ever think about that, or does he just assume that really he's just kind of like he's just really an enhanced human? Do Kryptonians do things differently than humans? Do they mate emotionally or mentally before they get physical? Do they date? Do they have rituals like Spock's Pon farr? She kind of wants to explore that side of Superman a little bit. And that is an interesting thing that I never really thought about before.
Learn more about his heritage.
Yeah, exactly. And just to see, how do you deal with it? Like, if you find out you're not human, you actually are not human, you are an alien. Like that's a pretty big deal to find out something, it's like, it's one thing to find out you're adopted, but to find out that you're a whole different species or whatever, that's a big deal. Big deal. Okay. So that's all for, of course, the Church of Metropolis. And I looked, and I just could not find anything for Operation Blackout, really, at all. There just wasn't much out there. I don't know if it's because of the title or if people just didn't have much to say about it. It was just, I couldn't find anything aside from the episode guide.
Yeah, nobody wants to talk about that one.
Yeah, even looking in the Kryptonian Cybernet over at Superman homepage where they have them all archived, there's really not much in there at all.
All right, well, we have a little bit in the way of personal ads.
Yes, so over on the Zoomway forums, Annie L. Was on there, and she said that she always liked Justin Whalen's performance, but she does miss the sarcasm that Michael Landis gave to Jimmy, and I do agree. Like, I had no problem with Justin Whalen when he first came on back in the day when I was first watching it. I was like, oh, this is cool. But looking at it now, like I say so many times, especially with Sliders, looking at it now with a critical eye and an older eye maybe, I really don't like Justin Whalen as much as I like Michael Landis. I mean, I never had an issue with him, but they've changed the character. They've really changed the character.
Yeah, well, and like we said, he really hasn't had that much to do.
But I just think if they had kept the character the same, kept him on the same level as Lois and Clark, as being smart, having a nose for news, I think if they had done that, I would not be as critical of Justin Whalen. Like I said, I'm a big fan of him. I always was. But I just realizing now how much they changed the character is just, it's annoying to me. I'm like, come on. Annie L also said that she had heard that Deborah Joy Levine had a suggestion from the network to actually make Lois and Clark detectives instead of reporters, and she was wondering if this idea contributed to the changes that we see. How they're being treated as more as like cops without oversight. If this was, because ABC wanted it, maybe this is why you're seeing so much of that now, like taking your badge when you get suspended and all that, and getting personally involved in the stories. So I don't know if that's why they started to move towards this or not, but that was something that ABC had suggested at one point, so maybe that's why it happened. And she said, gave us congrats for getting through season 1, and she's looking forward to the next season with us, and she'll be listening.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you listening, Annie L. Thank you.
Yes, definitely.
All right, so our next issue, we'll be talking about That Old Gang of Mine and A Bolt from the Blue. That Old Gang of Mine, I think, has something to do with cloning, like, famous criminals from the past, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
right?
Somehow they have gangsters from the old days. Yeah, I think Al Capone, Bonnie and Clyde, that type of thing. Yeah,
but A Bolt from the Blue, I got no idea.
I don't know. I remember there is an episode, and maybe it's this season. I just thought it was a little early, but there is an episode where there is another superhero that gets his powers from Superman. Somehow Superman saves someone, and the powers get transferred from him into...
Right.
Yeah. And
like
it was
actually...
lightning
or something.
Yeah, and it was the actor who played the Invisible Man. He comes back as a different character, So maybe this is the one, possibly?
Maybe.
I don't remember because I seem to remember that episode also had a Lois that had superpowers too. So I don't know if it's this one. I think it's kind of early for that.
I think that might be a separate episode.
Separate one? Okay.
Yeah, she becomes like Ultra Woman or something.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I guess we'll find out.
All right. Well, that's it for this issue of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up with listener interaction by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast or facebook.com/Lois and Clark Rewatch, and follow the show on Twitter at Rewatch Pod. Don't forget you can visit our webpage at rewatchpodcast.podomac.com, which has links to some of our favorite sites there, such as zoomway.net, the folc.wiki.com, supermanhomepage.com, and of course the links to our favorite film rewatch episodes.
And of course you can always write us an email or record a voice message and send it to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. And also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. And you can also help support all the great work that we do here at the Rewatch Podcast by heading over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast, where you can make monthly contribution as little as $1. And of course, our entire back catalogue of episodes, sliders, movies, all that good stuff is up on YouTube. So just search the Rewatch Podcast and subscribe today. So thank you for joining me for these 2 episodes again, Tom.
Yep.
And I will just say until next time, you want to butt heads? Here comes the headache.
We gotta fly.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with Warner Brothers Television, ABC, Gangbuster Films Incorporated, or Round Delay Productions.
Don't believe everything you see on TV.
The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided in United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use.
Let's get legal on this.
Music provided by Kevin McCloud at incompetech.com.
Great shades of Elvis.
Copyright 2016, The Rewatch Podcast.
Wear your beepers. We'll be in touch.
Hi, Rewatch Podcast listeners. I'm Cory.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Nathan.
First off, let me say that we have all had a blast doing the Rewatch Podcast. Every week, we put out another episode for free for you. And although we enjoy these discussions with each other, we truly do this for you guys out there in podcast land.
That's right, Cory. But we are here today to tell you about Patreon. Every week, there are costs involved in podcasting about film and television, including hosting and bandwidth charges, our own personal internet usage, and film or show rentals and purchases. So, we're asking you to become a Patreon supporter.
If you can afford as little as $1 to throw our way per month, it would really help us keep the lights on. And if you want to send $100 our way every month, we wouldn't turn that down either. But it's your choice, and we appreciate the support you bring.
As always, we strive to bring you the best quality shows we can create, and we hope that you enjoy them. So head on over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast to become one of our patrons and show your support for the Rewatch Podcast.
And if we get enough patrons, we may even be able to produce exclusive content just for the supporters in the form of simply getting episodes before the main feed release, or even bonus film discussion episodes as a thank you for your support. The website again is patreon.com/rewatchpodcast.
Thanks, everyone.